The decade begins in 1320 with Brayden Barrow as the head of our family. He has just moved into a new farm that the landlord has granted him thanks to the gifts and influence of his rich best friend, Quentin de Lacy. However, this has set Brayden back a whopping 36,000 simoleons, which he now owes his best friend, in addition to another 36,000 simoleons that he currently owes his siblings and aunt as their inheritance after their father passed away during the famine. Brayden is recently married to Quentin's illegitimate half-sister Fatima, and the couple are nervously expecting their first child. Brayden's older sister Stephanie is married to her childhood friend Brandon Townsend and gives birth to the first legitimate child of Generation 3, Nicolette. Stephanie's mother-in-law also gives birth to a little girl that she conceived during a one-night stand with the notorious outlaw Harlan Graves. To conceal the affair, the family attempts to pass the two girls off as twins. Back in the main household, Brayden's twin brother Frederick marries a widow who owns her own farm and moves out, leaving only their tomboyish younger sister Adriana to help Brayden and Fatima with their new farm. Fatima gives birth to twin daughters, but both of them pass away and the family is devastated. To try and fill the hole in their hearts, Fatima and Brayden adopt two kittens, Cosmo and Mr. Wiggles, who will spend the rest of their lives obsessing over the fire pit and ignoring their needs. In 1321, Fatima meets Brayden's cousin Zane and discovers that he is her soulmate. Brayden witnesses them flirting and they get into an argument, after which Fatima holds a small dinner party to get their minds off things. She successfully matches her good friend Daisy with Brayden's younger brother, the bad-natured, nosy slob Noah, and she and Brayden successfully make up, although she can't help feeling something is wrong every time she's romantic with her husband. Brayden's mother Rosemary arrives with all of his youngest siblings to help with the farm, making time for him to reconcile with Fatima and resume trying to conceive. His younger brother, the cold-blooded psychopath Kaylin, spends less time working on the farm and more time flirting with their farmhand Osha, and the other siblings are more busy playing, which leaves Adriana doing all of the farm work on her own again. The year ends with Noah tying the knot with Daisy at the inn where he's been working, though not before getting a little bit of woohoo practice with the innkeeper's wife. In 1322, our resident tomboy Adriana surprises everyone by aging up into a gorgeous young lady, and Brayden starts looking for potential suitors before she gets herself into trouble. The only one who holds her interest is the pickpocket Corey, who she used to play with when they were kids. Unfortunately for her, Corey falls in love at first sight with her aunt Gabriella, leaving Adriana upset and feeling very much betrayed. She retaliates by sneaking out and trying to flirt with men at the tavern, but no one takes her seriously, and she spends the evening complaining about her life to a widowed father of four. Fatima gives birth to baby Romarin, our new heir for Gen 3, and Brayden organizes a party to introduce him to the family, only to have Fatima and her soulmate Zane start flirting in front of everyone, which once again makes Brayden jealous. Meanwhile, cold-blooded Kaylin, who I intended to be a heartbreaker, has no luck in romance whatsoever, and we seem to have a trend of romantic bad luck going for all of our Gen 2 teens. This year, we also catch up with the two missing Baker orphans who disappeared several years ago after their parents died in the famine. They are now working as servants in a brothel in Tartosa, and Lucia ages up into a teen and rolls the hedonistic trait, paving the way for a promising career under the Madame's tutelage. In 1323, the family's luck takes a turn for the better, and not only do we get 7 successful birthdays, but Adriana is invited out on a date by Grayson Carver, and they both have a wonderful time. Rosemary begins to get closer to a guard named Hubert and considers getting remarried, while Daisy gives birth to twins Eva and Christopher, but sadly, only Christopher survives to see the end of the year. The only other role that has failed this year is Auguste Verviers, but he is miraculously saved by his brother Ghislain. Auguste and Ghislain are all that remain of Brayden's Aunt Gemma, and they are currently living in Henford with Gemma's third husband, the evil Sir Lucan Verviers. Things heat up between Gabriella and her soulmate Corey, and he invites her to meet his family of outlaws to be sure she knows what she's getting into if they get married. Gabriella is delighted to meet them, and the two of them agree to marry quietly and move into a small abandoned cabin that the outlaws were using as a hideout. In 1324, Lucan's brother Tobias returns to Henford to confront him after learning that he may have had a hand in their father's murder. This culminates in a duel during which Lucan is gravely injured. Thankfully, his son Gisne comes to the rescue again and successfully saves him from death. Gabriella and Corey tie the knot, and a short time later, they welcome their first child into the world. They decide to name her Shanna after Gabriella's mother, who passed away when she was just a toddler. Rosemary and her beau Hubert get engaged, but when Rosemary surprises everyone by announcing that she is pregnant, she is subsequently left at the altar. The family attends the wedding of Brayden's best friend Quentin, but the festivities lead to a few unexpected matches. While Kaylin begins a flirtation with Quentin's sister Rosa, Adriana has a tryst with Lucan Verveers, who actually happens to be her uncle through his marriage to her Aunt Gemma, but we are just going to conveniently forget about that. After almost 3 years of trying to conceive, Fatima and Brayden are finally expecting another child, while Rosemary gives birth to her illegitimate son, Tristan. In 1325, Hubert returns to apologize to Rosemary, and the two of them are finally married. Fatima and Brayden lose their baby again, and Fatima decides that she no longer wants to try to conceive, the loss of 3 children being too much for her to bear. Devastated by his loss and his wife's decision, Brayden focuses entirely on his son Romarin and starts to spoil him. Bad luck seems to be following the family this year, as Daisy gives birth to twin sons and one of them passes away. Gabriella loses her second daughter Violet, and Stephanie's son Brian passes away under suspicious circumstances that may or may not have been caused by her mother-in-law, who hates children. To escape the sadness, Adriana sneaks off to her brother Noah's inn, where she brushes off her boyfriend Grayson in favor of spending more time with the leader of the outlaws, Harlan Graves. Yes, the same Harlan Graves who has an illegitimate child with Stephanie's mother-in-law. Meanwhile, Caleb makes a few conquests of his own. After a short fling with one of the patrons at the inn, he also has a fling with Rosa de Lacy, which leaves her head over heels for him. At a gathering with friends, he runs into his old childhood friend Morgan Hale and realizes that she is his soulmate. However, since she's only a farmer's daughter, he decides not to take things any further as he has bigger ambitions. By the end of the year, despite not actively trying to conceive, Fatima realizes that she is pregnant again. In 1326, Auguste Verveers is introduced to 3 potential spouses, and he ultimately falls in love with Rosa de Lacy, who is nervous after her relationship with Kaylin has not resulted in an engagement. The two of them get married, and she later gives birth to a baby girl, though it isn't clear if this baby is Auguste's or Kaylin's. Kaylin gets engaged to a talented seamstress named Becca and goes to a tavern with his sisters Adriana and Esther to celebrate his engagement. While celebrating, he runs into Eleonora Miller, the mother of his brother Frederick's illegitimate daughter, and learns that she is also celebrating her upcoming wedding. The two of them take their celebration a little too far, but the weddings go ahead as planned. After Kaylin's wedding, things take a dramatic turn. Fatima loses her baby again, and the family learns that Adriana has run away to be with the outlaw Harlan. They have also taken with them the illegitimate daughter that Harlan had with Stephanie's mother-in-law after witnessing her being mistreated. In 1327, Brayden sends his sister Esther to work at the castle, where she is surrounded by bad influences. The youngest of the Barrow siblings, Allison and Alexander, join Brayden's farm to replace Kaylin and Adriana. While Allison is a perky and outgoing people person, Alexander turns out to be cruel, judgmental, and materialistic, which I suspect is because he was severely neglected while growing up and has been forced to sport a bowl cut all his life. Kaylin's wife Becca gives birth to their first child Mary, but he just can't stay away from his soulmate Morgan Hale and goes to ask her if she would be his mistress. Adriana ends up in Tartosa, where she has bought a ranch and is now expecting a child of her own. Also in Tartosa, her cousins Lucia and Enrio are still thriving at the brothel. While Lucia begins her career as a rose, Enrio is smitten by one of their female patrons. In 1328, the family seems to be under a bit of a curse because both Kaylin and Adriana lose their firstborn child, and Brayden wishes for a child at the wishing well and is granted the evil child Khalil. As soon as Khalil joins the household, it is revealed that Fatima is pregnant again. Over at the castle, our young and naive Esther begins a relationship with the Lord's flirtatious brother-in-law Bodwin, and a cursed book is mysteriously found and destroyed, cursing her fellow servant Demetrius. In 1329, the decade comes full circle as Fatima gives birth to twins again, just as she had during the first year of the decade. This time, however, both twins survive, and it is Fatima who loses her life. Her son Romarin miraculously convinces the Grim Reaper to spare her, and our main household finally finds some peace and happiness, with the relationship between Brayden and Fatima being mended as they raise their 3 healthy children. Oh, and the evil child from the well. We move on to the 1330s with 5 Sims in our mainline and 29 Sims in our side households. We initially started the challenge with 3 founding siblings. Out of our 29 side household Sims, 7 are descendants of Cecilia, 16 are descendants of Frederick, 3 are descendants of Gemma, and 2 are descendants of their half-sister Gabriella, who is the only Gen 1 sibling still alive. During this decade, there were 29 births and 12 deaths. All 12 of those were due to failed birth or birthday rolls, and all of those Sims were under 5 years of age. We successfully pleaded 3 times with the Grim Reaper, which saved the lives of Ghislain, Lucan, and Fatima. If we include spouses who did not do any birthday rolls prior to joining the family, our life expectancy is 14 years old, which is actually lower than the previous decade despite there being a famine. If we look only at Sims who are part of our bloodline and did all of their birthday rolls, a life expectancy falls to 10 years of age, which is the same as the previous decade. Thank you to everyone who has been following along. I look forward to seeing you all in 1330.